has anybody ever heard of the reticular activating system before? No? Nobody? Katie, you know, right? So it's this
I'm a
little,
dork. That's why I'm a dork. Everybody else on
yeah,
here are cool guys, and I'm a
it's normal
dork.
people, right? Yeah. Well, I first learned about it from a guy named Ed Milet. I was listening to a podcast and he started talking about it. And he was saying how it's this little filter in the back of our spine that goes to our brain. And then whatever we give the reticular activating system, it keeps giving us more of what we want, right? So that's why people who always say, "Oh, I have terrible luck and nothing goes right for me," and all that, it's just like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because then this little chip in the back of our brain keeps giving us more bad stuff, right? So what is it? It's a network of neurons located in your brainstem that acts like a filter and control center for attention, arousal, and awareness. I promise I'm not going to get all sciencey. This has a practical impact for us, right? But what it does, it filters informations. Your senses take in millions of bits of information every second, but the reticular activating system decides what's important enough for you to notice, right? We're being bombarded with stuff all day, right? It controls focus and alertness, helps you wake up, stay alert, or tune things out. It influences beliefs and mindset. It tends to notice and highlight the things that match your current thoughts, goals, and beliefs. And that's really where it's important to us, right? Is that if we start looking at things, it's going to start filtering. So if we give it good info, it's going to give us good info back. If we give it bad info, it's going to give us bad info back, right? So I think where we all have lived this before, it filters our attention, right? So like if I woke up today and said, I want to get a white Mercedes or I want to get a Mercedes sedan, right? And I had never really thought about doing that before. And I'm driving around every day and I'm not really noticing Mercedes sedans, right? Because it's not on my mind. But then all of a sudden I'm like, hey, you know what? I think I want a Mercedes. Then what's going to happen as I drive down the freeway? I'm going to see Mercedes, 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 Mercedes. Now they were always there, but my reticular activating system wasn't processing that because I had never told myself or it that I
Hmm.
was interested in a Mercedes. So it's going to look at something else. So this has huge ramifications for us, though, as business owners, right? Because we can use this to make sure that we're good, right? Like everybody saw The Secret, probably, right? The movie The Secret, right? Manifest, whatever. Look, I'm not very woo woo. But the thing is that it
You
is
say you're not woo woo, but you are so woo woo, Eric.
maybe. So
You
the
say
thing
you're not
is
woo woo when you meditate. You say you're not woo woo when you talk about the secret. Like, you just need to accept the fact that you
all
are
right.
woo woo.
Apparently, I'm woo. I'm blue collar woo. And so the thing is, though, is that like people go, "Oh, The Secret." I'll just like think about something and it will happen. Well, obviously, that's not true, right? We have to take action and all that. But I think the point of that movie or show was that if you start training your brain to see the things that you want, to work towards your goals, to ignore the things that are negative and bad, we're going to be that much closer to getting what we want, right? A lot of times, the only difference between people who are super successful and people who aren't is just the way they think, the way they train their mind. They're no smarter. I know all kinds of people that are way smarter than me and have never been able to make a business work. Right? Why? Because they're always thinking negative thoughts. They're always thinking, I can't, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough, whatever it might be, right? Well, with this little filter in the back of our head, whatever we keep telling it is going to keep giving us more of it, right? So, Katie, you obviously know about this. Like, do you see this in action? You have 60 employees. You see people that are probably constantly
You bet.
looking at only the negative, and then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy from there.
One of our values at Get Found First and Spot On Solutions is, and it's probably my favorite value actually, is we face challenges with optimism. It's actually a value. And so when we're in our hiring process and everything, it's one of the main things we're looking for. Like, hey, are you somebody that, is optimistic or negative? How do you face challenges? What do you do? To me, I think that right there is one of the defining parts of grit. Somebody that has grit and can push through things and figure stuff out, it starts with this idea of just how are you viewing things? Do you see them with a positive lens, or is everything negative, expecting the worst, somebody else's fault?
Yeah. Yeah. And look, we talk about disc a lot. Right? Some disc personality profiles are more inherently positive than others, right? So if you have a more skeptical mindset, I myself included, we have to work just that much harder to make sure that I'm not always going to the skeptical. I'm not always going to, this isn't going to work out, or I can find 10 reasons why this won't work, find 10 reasons why it can. And that's really training your mind, right? And being self-aware enough to say, oh, I'm being negative right now. I should stop that because if I
And I
keep doing it,
I think, you guys, that there is a line between sometimes we just say that skeptical is negative. I don't think skeptical always has to be negative, right? Skeptical can be inquisitive, skeptical can be thoughtful, skeptical can be a lot of different things, but we're really quick to put a negative spin on that. So if you're skeptical, that's okay. That doesn't mean you're automatically negative. You can be skeptical in a very optimistic way as you train your brain for success this way.
that's true. Yeah, it's a mindset issue
Mhm.
too, right? So has anybody ever felt like they could use some work on their mind more so than their skill level? Katie,
I mean,
Melanie?
I think it's, I think it is something personally, I have to look in the mirror and ask it all the time. Like, where's my mindset at? Right. And I think over time, it just becomes more, just like anything, the more you do something, the better trained you get at it, the easier it becomes, the more automatic it gets. But there's a long time that that was something that was a constant question and just like a self-evaluating thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like I think for all of us, it doesn't matter what size company we are, right? Whatever size we are, we've probably never been there before. Katie talks about this, like, oh, I'm running this size company now. Like, I've never done that before. But that's all of us, right? Whatever size the company is, we probably haven't been there yet, unless it's a second business or third business or whatever. And like a lot of times, I think a lot of us don't feel like maybe we belong. So we start having self-doubt. Like, oh, maybe I'm not supposed to own $1 million business or $2 million business or $3 million business, right? And we have to flood our mind with the thoughts of like, no, I am smart enough to do this. I can do this. What skills do I need to learn next? Right. I mean, Melanie, you were shaking your head. So this resonates with you?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Ken had to run out and do a call. That's why he's not here. But anyway, we were having a little discussion.
Is that what we're
and
calling that tonight?
and so, we were talking about how, jobs right now, I mean, nationwide, it's not hot or cold. The weather is beautiful. People are very much so enjoying the weather, and being in HVAC, it's very much so kind of in that lull season, right, for us. And I said, I said, well, obviously I need to do more marketing. And he's like, well, how are you going to do that? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I just need to go get another job. And he was like, why do you always play the woe is me? And I'm like, because I feel that if jobs aren't coming in, it's because of my lack of getting out there, which when you really look at it, if you saw my schedule, you would be like, I don't know how you could fit in another thing. So, and it's also just the positive self-talk. I feel that I come across very confident and self-assured because I usually am. But when it comes to me personally, if I really delve in and, maybe if I look different, maybe if I walk different, maybe if I talk different, that it would attract more people. But I mean, yeah, I think self-talk is just so vitally important. And when I give, it goes all back to the whole thing of when I give myself grace in areas that maybe I'm not 100% in, but I gotta take a step back and say, I gotta give myself some grace in this area, that I then in return will give other people more grace.
Yeah. Like it's very self-aware. And I think the key now is to catch yourself when you're doing the negative talk and saying, whoa, whoa, that's not me. I'm better than that. Right. So, all right. So how can we can use this to our benefit? Well, the first thing is set clear goals, right? Write them down, review daily. It programs your reticular activating system to seek out opportunities aligned with those goals. Like for years, I write my goals on a 3x5 card every single morning, right? Because I want the act of writing that down and seeing it and basically burning it into my mind. I've done this since I was in my 20s, right? Just, you know, the more times I see that goal, the more times I'm training my brain to get where I want to go, right? It's not enough to set a goal and sit and never look at it, right? It needs to be looked at consistently, you know. Maybe some people that's monthly, some people that's weekly. For me, it's every day. I have to look at it every day or I'll
Hey,
get lost.
Eric, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Like, how long did it take you to get into that habit of every day? Because I know you've been doing that for a long time now.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I started when Yana and I first got out of college and we were newlyweds and I had a crummy job and I wrote down some goals because I didn't hate my life, but I didn't like my work life, you know, and you know, I'm early 20s or whatever. And I didn't know what to do, Katie. So I don't know if this is an answer. I didn't know what to do, but that was one thing I could control. I can write down my goals every day. Like to be honest, in my life, that was the only control I had. So I, I did it. You know, I didn't. You know, Atomic Habits wasn't out, but I had a trigger. I used to do it at the same time, sitting in the same chair every morning before I would go to work. Right. So I don't think it was that difficult. I had a couple times along the years where I got out of the habit because I was traveling too much or got too busy and I didn't have like, you know, the chair and the same time. But every time I did that, I stalled. Like seriously, like because I was tracking the goals. Every time I stopped doing it, I wouldn't make a lot of progress for that period. Like to be honest, because I would just get lost in the shuffle. Like I have to I probably have ADD on some level, right? I had to have it in front of me all the time to stay on track. So I know I didn't answer your question, but it wasn't really hard for me to do it. It was just for me, it was like that's the only control I have at that time in my life. And then it worked. Right. And look, I'll tell the story real quick. I didn't do it like I did it just financially. So I think at the time I made $25,000 a year. So I said, well, next year I'm going to make 50. And the year after that, I'm going to make 100. And the year after that, I'm going to make 200. And then the year after that, I'm going to make four. And like, I'm a kid out of high school, college, right? I'm a knucklehead. Like, I have no right trying to double my income every single year. I reached every single one of those goals
Hmm.
on time.
I like
It's
that.
just like I looked at it so much. I think it helped me make decisions and seek out opportunity and stuff like that. And look, you know, $400,000 a year in 2001 was a lot of money. You know, I mean, it's a lot of money now. So it was just, it was my process.
Yeah.
And I learned that I have to look at my goals every day.
That story reminds me, we did a podcast, you guys, with a guy, his name's Brad Camphouse. He lives here in Idaho. And it was really fun as we were recording this podcast is all about mindset and positive thinking and the secret, this stuff we're talking about here. And as we were talking, he had so much passion about the story he was telling that literally people in my office kind of stopped working and started gathering around where we were recording this podcast at. Because what he was saying was like, just hitting people. And it's like, is that real? Does that really happen? Can that really work? Right. And anyway, I'll go find a link to that podcast and I'll share it in our on our Facebook group. So if anybody's interested in kind of hearing his story, which really kind of matches kind of what Eric's saying, he goes into a few details about what he did and what he saw come about from that. I'll go share that podcast in our Facebook group.
Well done. Okay. Next thing, use positive self-talk. What you repeatedly tell yourself trains your reticular activating system what to look for, right? Look, most of us are really hard on ourselves. I bet you, like, we say stuff to ourselves that we would never say to another human being, right? Like, we are downright cruel to ourselves. Like, we screw something up. Oh, you're an idiot. Like, he's the dumbest guy on earth. I say this stuff to myself all the time. And it's like, it's a bad habit because what are we doing? We're training our brain to think that we're less than, right? And I think it's important for us to go the other way. And that's what, part of my daily meditation is affirmations, right? It's part of like saying, like, yeah, you're a smart person or you're a good person or whatever. So however you get there, you get there. And then visualize success. Seeing yourself achieving something in your mind's eye makes your reticular activating system treat it as it's important, helping your brain and body to do the work. I've always had a vision board. It's always been in my basement. I just hang it up. I put, this is the house I want. This is the car I want. This is how much I want in my bank account. This is what I want my vacations to look like. And I try to redo that every year if I've reached the goals. And anybody else do a vision board? Melanie, you do? Cool. Yeah. They work, right? It's the same thing as the 3x5. If I just keep looking at the visual image over and over, right? Howard has it on his stairs at his house in Florida. The stairs are painted with the vision that he did. What is Michael Gerber's thing called? The dream room? Dream something? Howard went and did the whole like drew out his dream with Michael Gerber's dream room, and then he had them painted on the stairs walking up the main flight. Very cool. So kind of neat. Anybody else? Nobody. Katie, do you have a vision board?
I don't have a vision board.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked by that.
I don't have a vision board, and I've thought about doing one a lot of times. I haven't done a vision board. I do more just visualization and
Yeah.
meditation is what I do, but I haven't done a vision board. And you want to know if I'm going to just be perfectly honest with that? It is because I am probably a little too private with my stuff, right? That's a vulnerability thing, which is also something we talk about a lot, you guys. I hide that stuff. I keep it all into myself. That's a little bit of a mindset issue of I don't want other people to see that. It's a
Mm.
challenge. Yeah.
Even at home.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
Listen, I will tell you the other value we have at our company is we believe in big things. And I do believe in big things, like really big things. And quite honestly, that kind of freaks people out sometimes, including the people I live with.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Right. Yeah. No, if you're not freaking everybody out, you're not trying hard enough. I freak Yana out about every 3 weeks with some cockamamie idea. So yeah, I think it's important for us to just have written goals. And look, the point of this lesson is it's a couple fold, right? It's to watch what you say to yourself or watch how you think. We all, as owners, have to watch how you think. I have a bunch of clients that just came back from Tommy Mello's Home Service Freedom, and I've talked to them over the last couple days, and everybody said what I took away from it was I was in a building full of people who think way bigger and way more differently than I do. Right. So that's the point. We have to we're going to talk about this in alpha next week of like reaching our full potential, right? And what keeps us from doing that. And I think it usually starts with how we talk to ourselves. So I think if we learn nothing else from tonight, know that there's this little thing in the back of your brain stem that is listening to everything you say to yourself. And you want to treat that little thing nicely. I think that's the key, right? All right, now let's get off of nice No, Bryce, I'm kidding, man.
The
So,
terrifying slide, my friend.
yeah. I get it for Bryce. I even went on his website and got his stuff. So anyway, Bryce, I know you don't know everybody here, so you're going to be on the hot seat. And look, it's going to be respectful. I'm just kidding. Um, Bryce was nice enough to he's going to bring an issue that he's having forward, and then Bryce, everybody's going to chime in and give their input. Right. The whole beauty of the retreats is the power of the group. It's not Katie. It's not me. It's not any of us individually. It's all of us. So, why don't you introduce yourself? Talk a little bit about your business, and then what that big issue that you have going on is, and we'll go to
Okay.
the power of the group.
All right. Well, I have a small business that I do. It's a hobby business. I remember a couple weeks ago in Ogden and Bravo group, Eric jokingly, said we're not in Hobbyland anymore, right? Uh, I liked outdoors, hunting, shooting, all sorts of stuff like that, and kind of sprung was just a hobby while I was in college, made a little extra money, and then turned into a business. Number of stores across Southeast Idaho, now Wyoming, and soon to be probably Utah, Canada, and we also have a store in Indiana carrying some of our products actually, which is pretty cool. So some of our products, make some gun holsters. So just kind of show a little bit what that kind of looks like. It's plastic, thermally formed. But my burning issue is a business partner that I've at times described as like he kind of acts like he's a part-time entitled employee, right?
Okay.
So we've been officially a business for over 4 years, and it just seems like some of my frustrations with where we're at, and maybe that self-talk that keeps us from growing is any more work that I do is going to be all on me to produce the extra volume rather than my business partner because he's kind of just going to ride the coattails.
And what percentage of the revenue or profit will he get?
So I've got 75% ownership. He's got 25% ownership.
Okay. All right, guys, fire away. We'll start asking Bryce some questions. No, I'll start. Why do you have a business partner?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And when I started out as a business, I didn't necessarily have the vision for what it was going to be. He was supposed to bring some other things to the table in terms of finishing up his degree that he was currently in school for engineering and going to head up some stuff with manufacturing, designing our own molds, which were terribly expensive, and having the training and equipment for that to be able to do that internally would have been really valuable. And I was also starting this, as a recently graduated college student who didn't have much money and having someone else to share the load of making a bunch of holsters versus doing it all myself and not having to pay him felt really attractive at the time.
So did he put money in to start, or is it sweat
Yeah, he
equity?
put he put money in to start.
Katie, you're muted.
Still muted.
Sorry, my computer was dying and it was beeping. Clarifying question for you, Bryce, is remind me, how long have you guys had this partnership, and was it a friendship prior to a partnership?
He started out as a customer about 6 years ago, and within the course of 6 months, went from a customer who got me kind of back into the hobby. I'd been out of it for a while, actually, got me back into kind of making some. But as a customer to a friend, we did a little sponsorship with him in his competitive shooting that he was doing, and then as we talked about him becoming a partner later on, but all within 6 months.
So if he's a
Colin?
25% sorry, Eric, if
No,
he's a
I was going to call.
25% partner share, is he doing 25% of the leadership role or whatever role that's been defined for him?
So we have, I mean, right now the current workload is I do most everything and he handles a lot of the production, but a lot of the production overflows to me where it's based out of my garage and shop.
Yeah.
How do you guys hold each other accountable for what you each need to do?
He trusts and knows that I get done what needs done, and I kind of that's probably one of the hardest things is communication and accountability, because to him it probably feels like there's a lot of frustrations I have with him that I vocalize, that there's times where I probably don't vocalize as much as I should when there is something that needs talked about, because I don't want to, like, just continue to, like, put him down.
Would you be open to buying him out?
Yes, and he knows that, and he is not very uh he's not very much liking that idea. And frankly, if he would step up, I'd have no problem with it. I like the quote that if you want to go, fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I think together we can go further, but there's got to be a level of stepping up there.
All right, we got to have more questions from the group.
I'll let people think for one more minute here, and then Eric and I won't ask any more questions. So be thinking of what other questions you need to know. But Bryce, do you guys have an operating agreement or a buy-sell agreement, or has it always just been a handshake partnership?
No, we have an operating agreement. I'm not sure exactly where it is. I think it's on my computer somewhere, somewhere buried, right? But
Okay.
yep. No, we
You
have an
might want
operating agreement,
you
and I
might
think
want to find that.
yep.
All
So
right.
if he's
Any
supposed to
more?
handle the manufacturing, then is he handling that? Are you having flow issues, keeping people stocked, or
Some of it, that communication. There's a number of times. So little bit of context, right? They're all made. In my garage, I built a whole workshop for it. Um, he has to drive about 20 minutes to get to my place to do that. He and I both have our full-time jobs. But it's a drive for him to come do it. He comes once a week, and there's often times that's communicated that X, Y, and Z need done, and Z does not get done.
yeah, I
Do
don't
you have
think a 20-minute drive shouldn't be putting anybody out, if it's
No,
not
no,
much of a drive.
I've actually, after Eric, told me that basically I would be volunteering to be on the hot seat this week. He and I did have a decent conversation on Monday, actually, and I think there are some things going on in his personal life that probably are affecting that. I think he's willing to open up about, and whatever that ends up being, then that being cognizant of that and taking that into account and empathetic there, I think could go a long ways.
Corey, were you going to say something?
have you thought about having anything written out, listing out specific duties and tasks that each of you are taking care of and kind of bringing to the table so that you can kind of clearly define what your
Mhm.
what your desires out of each other are?
No, and I again on that kind of the operating agreement, I believe there is something there. I just would have to look up where that is. So find that, and then I had kind of had the thought that, he and I revisiting that and clearly establishing that, and it could kind of almost backdoor the way into, a forced sell of his shares if he doesn't follow through with that, but kind of revising and revisiting that.
Phil, do you have any
Hey,
questions?
Bryce, could you start from the beginning? I didn't catch the statement where you began the partner that seems like an entitled, and then I missed the rest of it.
It feels a little bit like he's like an entitled, like, Gen Z part-time employee. That's how it feels sometimes.
How would he describe you, Bryce? If you describe him as
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah. No,
part-time
no, that's that's
employee,
that's a
how
that's a
would he describe
wonderful
you?
question. I think he would describe me with some sense of perceived injustice, is kind of how I've thought of it, of what he may see. I try and look at it from his perspective. He and I are in very different worlds. I mean, he and his wife would technically, I think, qualify for like food stamps and Medicaid. He's a corrections officer, right? He just had an incident at the corrections facility that he almost lost an altercation with an inmate who attacked him.
So how do you think that affects how he feels about you and your business?
I think he doesn't necessarily realize all the work that goes on behind the scenes beside just producing a product.
So how often do you guys meet as owners to have like strategic planning and all that?
That's probably a big picture, semi-annual type of meeting. Beyond that, it's hard to pencil down a time with him. So that's one of the things we talked about was having a monthly kind of owners meeting, so to speak.
All right. Does anybody else have any like qualifying questions, clarification questions, just to get the information before we maybe start throwing out some ideas for Bryce to think about?
You guys have written down goals that with, timeframes and all that sort of thing? That would work.
No, I think
Rocks.
that's where we're at is, having a bigger conversation, also including our wives. I think both of our wives probably at times share some grief with us that you guys are doing this again, and it's for what?
Well, for him, if he's that broke, then for him, that should be a pretty good driving force, I would think.
Yep.
I have a question, Bryce. Is there a patent on these holsters?
No.
So if you guys couldn't reach an agreement, could it be shut down and you just start again?
I I know with our partnership agreement that we do have, part of that was that neither of us would be able to go in and create the same company again, basically. Like we would not be able to split her off for that.
Okay.
So I can't say that much.
Bryce, if you could overcome this challenge here, whether that meant he was on board or he was gone, right? What would your big vision for the company look like? What's your big aspiration with it?
I mean, my big aspiration is to, our slogans, the last holster you'll ever need that, you're never gonna have to buy another one, the quality and that's something that kind of probably frustrates me is that there's times that we produce something or that something leaves that really is not up to standard. And because all he does is makes the holsters and he's not involved with the customer service, the sales, with the relationships with stores, well, it's my name and reputation on it and not his so much. Right. So I would love nothing more to, walk into stores locally and see stores around the country as we're starting to a little bit see the holsters everywhere and just see it grow into a business that I don't know, I can not manage in the business, so to speak, and be producing the holsters, not handle the admin tasks, pay an admin, and have this as a, you know, asset and business that I'm involved in, but I'm not necessarily, you know, in 40 hours a week or whatever.
Okay.
All right. So Phil, what do you think Bryce should do next?
I've been cutting in and out of here. I'm not sure if it's
Okay.
me or what, but I was trying to gather what role his partner has and how that's rubbing Bryce the wrong way or vice versa. And I can kind of relate to that partnership rub. Um, I feel the pain here. So I guess let me ask a question. Are you familiar with the disc profile?
Yes, very.
Where are you at? Where do you land?
I am an ICD.
Okay. And where does he land?
Hmm. Probably more of like a CS.
Okay. So if there's a real leader in the group, who's that going to be? Is there a natural leader in the group?
Oh, it's wholly me.
Okay. And do you have to work at it or does it come naturally?
No, it comes pretty naturally.
Okay. And he doesn't like that.
I think sometimes he does not like being told what to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I face that same thing. And the entitlement of my partner as an owner, where he's not really a leader, that's where our rub comes.
Yeah.
And so my initial thought was to get a third party in there to lead your company, because that's what's helped us actually. It still causes problems,
Right.
but it takes the focus off me, and we're just trying to groom our guy to understand that he is who he is. There's nothing wrong with who he is, but he's just not going to be the person. He can't always pull the owner card.
Yep.
Okay.
Interesting.
Well,
Interesting approach, Phil. I like that.
Yeah. Wrote some things down there. So that's what my head was like turned
Because
sideways.
I think it looks to me like you're the entrepreneur, you have the vision, you brought this guy on for whatever reason, and whether you were friends and now not so much,
Friends,
or
inexpensive labor, and skill and opportunity to help us,
yeah,
accomplish some things that I wouldn't
and
be able.
he has stake in the company. So somewhere along the line at 25%, he wouldn't mind having 45. And maybe there's a transition or a step-by-step way he can get to that if
Mhm.
he achieves certain goals. Okay. Because I don't know what his motivation is if 25% satisfies him. If you guys are making big enough draws that helps his, or you pay him a salary and that's it. So I don't know what makes him tick. But if he's a CS, he probably likes to do the work,
Mhm.
and likes accomplishing some things, and maybe he wants to see more.
Yep.
who else? Danny, what do you think?
Have you ever like written down what you expect from him and have him do vice versa, like what he is expecting for what you do for the company, and kind of compare those notes?
Yeah,
Kind of
I love that exercise.
that's great. Yep.
so yeah, that way he knows what he's supposed to be doing, what you expect for him to be doing too, and kind of like sit down and talk about it. Like, hey, this is what we talked about, but you're not doing it, and he probably thinks different.
Yep.
Great advice, Danny. It's awesome. Who else? What else we got for Bryce? Bryce, do you guys ever sit down and redo a business plan like yearly? Like do business planning for the following year? Like we're kind of heading into the time of year where we think about 2026. Have you guys ever sat down and like, this is the mission, this is the vision, this is the org chart, this is what's expected of me, this is what's expected of you, right? So that there's a plan and you guys have a document that you can walk out with and go, okay, we're both on the same page.
Yeah, that's part of what we're wanting to accomplish is have a meeting first here probably this week or next to kind of lay
Okay.
out some of those things and set the tone and go over a few things to then okay, in the next one we want to go over some of those details and start working on that.
Bryce, one of the greatest things I think Michael and I did with our business, and thank goodness my husband is a lawyer because he insisted on it, right? When we started our business, because me and Michael and Derek at that time, who's a partner, were such good friends. Our families were all very, very good friends. Jonathan insisted that we have a buy-sell agreement that we all agreed to in the beginning, with the idea that at any point in time, if somebody needed out for their own personal reasons, or we needed someone out because they just weren't doing their share of the business, we could all walk away from that knowing what it would look like and being happy with it. And we made that buy sell agreement when we all wanted great things for each other, right? When we were happy with each other, because we went to the table with the idea of I always want you and your family to be happy and successful because things were good. It's easier to make a plan when everybody's happy. It becomes difficult to make a plan when you're at where you are right now, right? I think you have an opportunity to reset things and be like, hey, let's reevaluate what's important to you, what's important to me, what would you do, what would I do? And then you could come to this idea of a buy sell agreement. Jonathan, my husband, We made the first buy sell agreement, and then it became part of our business agreement together that we would sit down with him, a third party, right? Um, once a year, and we would review that. We would review it so we all remembered where it was at, what it said, and we'd say, "Hey, has anything changed? Would we want anything different?" Right? And we did that for 12 years. So when the time came that Derek was like, "Hey, I think I want out. I think I want to go start a restoration company," right? It was you get into those moments all of a sudden when a partner's maybe in or out, and now it's emotional, and now you got all these emotions that come with it that make it really hard to make decisions in a way that people don't get feelings hurt or anything like that. But because we had this buy sell agreement that we had come back to and visited over and over and over, literally Michael and I were able to say, "Okay, here's the buy sell agreement. Take it to your attorney, right? Come back with what the buyout offer looks like. We've already all agreed that this is what we're comfortable with."
Mhm.
Um, and we were 30 days, you guys. We were 30 days from announcement to buyout because of that situation. It doesn't mean it wasn't hard, and it doesn't mean it wasn't emotional. It was, but all those friendships were able to stay intact, and we were able to go to a place where we were happy and on a successful path. He was happy and on a successful path. So my recommendation to you would be to, number one, start with that idea of, "Hey, I want to save this partnership because we could probably go further together."
Right.
Start writing that stuff down. And then you guys can evaluate, are we on the same page? Is this doable? And if the answer is no, you're going to have another hard conversation. If the answer is yes, it's a perfect time to reset and say, "Okay, we're going to make a new operating agreement. We're going to make a new buy sell agreement, and we're going to make a new business plan."
Hmm.
And then to everybody on here, I would say, um, go back and sit down and review that buy sell agreement annually. Just annually go and have a conversation about it. Best decision I think I've ever made.
Yeah. All right. Who else? One last little bit for Bryce. Anybody else getting anything good? What? I
What do
have
you
one question. I have one question, Bryce.
Yeah.
Why do you think he is so against the idea of being bought out?
So this is interesting. We were at an event recently and we had someone in the industry that we're familiar with who was there with us. He was there one day, I was there another day, right? That's kind of how we divided that out. That person told me that, Jared had mentioned that this was his retirement, that in 2 years we were going to sell the business and he was going to cash out and retire. And I'm just, it to me, it felt like, the person that's buying the lottery ticket that doesn't have enough money to invest is like, I'm going to win the lottery someday and then I can retire, right? Like the blue collar,
Mm,
person doing that. To me, it felt like that, and we've talked that, eventually maybe that is something we could do is sell, but in no means within 2 years at the rate we're at. Like we don't have a business. He doesn't have a business. I have a extra part-time job, aka business that's not, to the scale with different things in terms of being able to function without me. So without me, there's nothing.
yeah. Okay. All right. Well, so I think between Phil and Holland and Katie and Danny, I think consensus, just to wrap up, is you guys really need to start sitting down and start doing some planning. And look, I think you need an org chart and job descriptions and then production rates. Like, it's
Mhm.
not fair if you're doing 100% of the work on some months or some weeks and he's doing none. Like that doesn't fly.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to understand that. Anybody else got anything in the end? All right, cool. Well, thank you,
I
Bryce.
think the
Appreciate that. Oh, go ahead, Corey.
I think the biggest thing with having the chart written down of who's in charge of what and who's taking care of what is, especially at that 25% partner, if he feels like he's putting out 50 to 70% of the work, but doesn't feel like he's getting recognized for it.
Mhm.
But then the other partner that feels like he's putting out 80% of the work and not getting recognized for it could easily sway decisions and such, and the emotions of it.
Oh, for sure.
I think, Bryce, also when you guys do your planning, is you're sitting down and you're doing, well, this is the admin. This takes me this many hours a week. This is the marketing. This takes me this many hours a week. This is the sales call. Like, I don't think he knows what you're doing. It's like we've talked about before with money with our team, right? If you're doing $4 million and you ask the team, well, how much are Eric and Larry taking home? They're like 2 million, right? Like they just don't know. And then you sit with the P&L and you start going through the whole thing, and their eyes are open to like, oh my gosh, there's so much more to this. He may not just know.
Yeah.
So I think, in fairness to him, maybe when you guys sit down, you have to like show that you're truly 75% or more of the value too.